everybody. Welcome to In This Corner, the podcast. Although, is it a podcast? But it certainly has boxing's biggest names, boxing's biggest stories, boxing's biggest fights, greatest memories and moments. And we do it all, of course, with boxing author, writer, CompuBox counter, historian, friendly West Virginia's own Lee Groves. And the reason I said, is it a podcast? You know, I was discussing this with Dazzling Dawn today. I still don't consider what we do a podcast. It's a damn show. What's a podcast? I don't know. I can't figure it out. I think we do a show. What do you think?
We do a show on the internet.
Is that called a podcast?
I guess that's what a podcast is,
okay.
But we do a show. It's a good show, too.
We did great last week. You know, Lee and I typically try to clock in at right at an hour. I try to keep it at that. And I constantly, as I've already done, lose control of this. I don't start it and stop it when I should. But what were we last week? 8 seconds over?
7 or 8 seconds. It was incredible.
Well, wasn't there one show that we nailed it and I had completely, you know what that is? That's the radio in me. That's the timing of starting out in radio way back in the day. And the radio, you know, that it makes you really, timing is kind of everything in radio. It makes you really conscious of that. All right, I babbled for 2 minutes or something. What are we doing here today? I know our special guest is Raul Marquez, and El Diamante is his nickname, and it was really fun working with him last week in Newark, New Jersey, on the Top Rank show on ESPN Plus. And so we'll talk about some of that and his 16-year career. And I know you have a bunch of questions for him. But what else are we? In fact, whatever we're going to do, let's just begin doing it. Where are we going here? Segment one.
Well, segment one, we're going to talk about the last week's action. And we're going to start with last Saturday's DAZN card from Birmingham, England. Mm-hmm. And in the main event, former unified 105-pound champion Francisco Rodriguez Jr. sprung the upset by outpointing home country hero Canelo-Crawford to win the WBC secondary flyweight title. Rodriguez swarmed Yafai from the start, and while Yafai did his best to hold him off, he was just overwhelmed by the pressure and the punches. A final round knockdown served to seal the deal for Rodriguez, who won by final scores of 119-108 and 118-109 twice. Also, Rodriguez made CompuBox history. His 575 total connects are now the most ever recorded in a flyweight fight tracked by CompuBox. And he beat Giovanni Segura's old record by 101 punches. And not only that, the 575 total connects were the 8th most ever recorded by CompuBox, regardless of weight class. He really did a job on him.
I mean, how big of an upset was that?
It was a pretty big upset. Well, it's a mild upset because Rodriguez was he was a former unified minimum weight champion. That was about 10 years ago. He is known for pressure, and there has been a history of Mexican fighters coming to England and upsetting the home favorites. And he's just the latest chapter of that iteration. But with the victory, Rodriguez has earned a chance at Kenshiro Taraji's WBC championship. And should he win that fight, he will hold a widely recognized world title for the first time since July 2015, 10 years. And if that happens, that would represent one of the longest spans between world titles ever recorded for a fighter. Now, George Foreman has the record with 20 years, but James Toney won a cruiserweight title more than 8 years after losing the super middleweight title to Roy Jones Jr. If he wins, he'll surpass Toney. So an intriguing storyline has been written there, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens there. And then, of course, the other card we previewed was the one that you worked last Saturday in Newark, New Jersey on ESPN Plus. And in the main event, middleweight Vito Mielnicki Jr., who we interviewed on last week's show, raised his record to 21-1-1 with 12 knockouts with a shutout 10-round unanimous decision over Mielnicki-Gardzielik. And that's the proper pronunciation of his name. First of all, Smitty, what did you think of Mielnicki's performance?
Well, he did what he was supposed to do. He did a lot of the things that he told us he wanted to do. He had a very educated jab, and he used it well, and he set up the right hand, a double right hand. It was in round number three, I think, two or three. Put Gardzielik down briefly. It didn't really hurt him that badly, but I think other than getting the stoppage, which I'm sure he would have liked to get in his partisan, with this partisan crowd there at the Rock, the Prudential Center. He's now 5-0 there. The four others he had got stoppages, but again, he's coming off that fight with Connor Coyle, which again we all thought he won, and
Yeah.
now with this performance where he won a lopsided decision, I think, and he might have mentioned this. I don't know if they'll do it. I'd like to see him go right back and fight Coyle, give Coyle another shot, and then see where he's really at. And then I think he's still very young, just a youngster, but within the next couple of years, really needs to make a move and figure out where he really sits in the landscape at a $160. So I think I'd still play somewhat of the waiting game if I were he and his people, but I would want to each time step up against something a little bit better or different, so that when I get the moment, if I get the moment, I'll be ready for the moment.
Right. And this marked your first appearance at ringside for ESPN Plus. Tell us about your experience from the flight to Newark and back home and when you arrived home in Las Vegas. What
Everything went,
stood
you know
out to
what?
you about the
Everything
whole thing?
everything went smoothly. We had heard all Newark's had a lot of issues with the airport there, but everything was smooth.
Good.
United Airlines, everything was smooth. It was what I expected, when you take on dual roles, as I had to do,
Hmm.
starting out doing the blow by blow with Paulie Malignaggi and Raul Marquez, who will join us shortly, and then shifting over to a roving Smitty, doing stuff backstage, and then doing some post fight interviews. It just keeps you on your toes, and not everybody can do it. I mean, I would be just as fine being there all by myself doing the whole thing. I'm capable of doing that as well. Christina Poncher came in and did her normal, splendid job that she did with the blow by blow, and so yeah, it was overall it was a lot of fun, and that was what I wanted going into it, was the F word, fun, and we
Hmm.
all had fun, and they're all of them, they're the consummate professionals, those three. So and we had some pretty good fights too.
Yeah, were there any undercard fights that caught your eye?
I think Jahai Tucker and Lorenzo Simpson, we expected that one to be a Donnie Brook and a Pier Sixer, and it was I think, for 10 rounds. It went the distance, but really good fight, ebb and flow. I thought Tucker clearly was the guy. There were a lot of people picking Simpson there.
Hmm.
And I heard all these reasons why he would score a knockout, that Tucker would stick his chin up in the air after a few rounds, get knocked out by Simpson. That didn't happen. So that was a heck of a fight. Speaking of rematch, that would be a great rematch. And that was just really two good young boxers who could punch a little bit. That was the one that really intrigued me the most.
And what was really intriguing was that the two of them were really going at it at the weigh-in during the build-up of the fight. But then when you were interviewing them after the fight was over, what did you
Yeah,
see?
yeah. Well, look at that picture there. In fact, I was a little chaotic getting in the ring. I didn't have a floor director, and I didn't have had an IFB, but there was no pack for me. So, it was a little chaotic, as probably you saw, trying to maneuver. And I was focused on Tucker, and I wanted to get in the questions. And then the next thing, I kind of glance and I see, another body there, and it was Simpson who moved into the shot. So we asked him, and they appeared cozy, didn't they?
It
And
really
look, you could
did.
see in the picture there. So yeah, all the pre-fight stuff that goes on. I think it was more about Simpson, and Tucker. They're both young guys with a lot of stuff on their mind, and Simpson's been through a lot. a lot of the stuff I'm certain that Christina and Paulie and Raul brought up. He's an emotional guy, but again, it was a heck of a fight.
It really was. And last question. As you mentioned, you were the only member of the broadcast crew who had to take on multiple roles. You were a blow-by-blow guy. You were post-fight interviewer, roving reporter. For those who might not know, that takes different skill sets. Can you describe the contrast of skill sets that you needed to execute?
Well, when you do blow by blow, you're the pilot basically. You're handling, your job is to call the action, but also lead your broadcast partners. In that case, it was Raul and Paulie to help explain, to further explain, to dissect what's going on, what each fighter needs to do or doesn't need to do. You're there to do traffic control, to set up replays, and to try again. And if you're doing it the right way, try to make your broadcast partners shine. And then if they do that, then you shine. As far as roving reporting, it depends on, I interviewed Vito before the fight. I think we interrupted him getting his hands done, and so you always have to be cognizant of the fighter's feelings. I don't have the experience inside the ring of Paulie and Raul, but I fought professionally, and I know what it's like moments before a fight. So that particular interview, you don't want to spend too long, but you want to get something out of the guy you're interviewing. And then post-fight, you just actually let the fighters explain what they did or didn't do. Did they think they won or lost? What's next? The obvious is what's next. And, unless there's something, whatever, that you want to bring in. So it's a lot of thinking on your feet. But again, sometimes with certain shows, if you don't have all the staffing, you have to play other roles, like how do I get in this ring when security's telling me not to? Where do I stand? And when do I get the mic from Ramblin' Ralph there? And how do I know when Christina's throwing me to cue to go? Because I couldn't see her. In the end, it all worked out. So I guess you got to be flexible, and think
Very.
on your feet. But it's fun. It's we're not saving lives. We're calling a fight. So
Calling a fight card.
yeah.
And speaking of calling fight cards, in the next segment, we're going to have one of your partners on.
Yeah. El Diamante, Raul Marquez will join us. In fact, he'll join us right after this.
I got two options. Option one, I can accept defeat. Option two, I can get up. I can get tougher. I can get faster. I can get stronger. And then I go get mine. I made my choice. Have you made yours?
Back in this corner of the podcast, a buck 62, boxing's biggest names, boxing's biggest stories, boxing's biggest fights, greatest memories and moments. It is special guest time as we welcome in El Diamante, the former junior middleweight champion of the world, Olympian, 16-year career, 41-4-1, 29 KOs. I was just with him. It seems like moments ago that we were together. How you doing, Raul Marquez?
I'm doing great, man. I'm actually I've been recuperating from that weekend because we covered a lot of fights. We did a lot of fights, and then I had an early flight. Remember, I told you my son plays coaches pitch baseball, right? And he had a tournament in Center, Texas. So when I landed in Houston at 8 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, I drove 2.5 hours, but it was well worth it because guess what, Smitty? They won 5 games and they won the regional title. Now in 2 weeks, 4th of July weekend, we're going to the state championships, and we're excited about that.
All right. Well, we were hoping. We did get a chance, though. We did get a chance to have dinner together, and as you see in these pictures right here. Look who's picking up the tab, baby. He tipped $20 or something like that. First question though, we talked a lot about, you and I talked a lot about everything, but
Yes.
16 years, when you think about your career and now these fighters today and boxing today, what do you see as the biggest differences from when you fought to now?
When I fought, and I'm going to talk for myself, I was an old school fighter, old school mentality. I try to fight the best to be the best. If I had an opportunity to fight some of the best fighters, I can't say that money didn't matter. Obviously you wanted to get paid, but I wanted to fight the best. And, I knew if I did it, if I won, if I beat that guy, then the money will come. I'll be able to fight even bigger names and the money would come. And I feel like now it's treated so much more like a business. A lot of people, a lot of fighters, they don't want to risk that zero, that one, they have no losses, or they don't want to fight the best right away because maybe the money's not there. But if you try to negotiate to your best and fight some of the name guys and you beat those guys, you got to believe that that money fight will come when you fight the best fighter in that division. So that's the way I believe.
And that what you're saying diminishes things for the fans because we don't get to see the fights we want to see. But even the fighters, do you think as a fighter, when they're brought along that carefully, that it really doesn't let them shine and become what they really could be? We never really see the best of them because they're constantly just being coddled along.
Yeah, I think so. They might, like you might be the next fight could be that guy that you're gonna fight, but then you fight another 3 or 4 fights before you even fight the number one guy, and you don't know if you're gonna get that same type of competition, type of fight, because 3 fights, 3 wars, or maybe 1 war and 2 okay fights is still wear and tear in your body. So those fights are not there. You don't get the fights now at the right time when you really want to see them. Maybe you get them down the line,
Yeah.
and maybe sometimes they're gone. They're gone because of negotiations, or this guy doesn't have that spark anymore. He lost the title. Those kind of situations. But back then, I think, like, I mean, let's be honest. My Olympic teammate Oscar De La Hoya, back then, he fought the best because, I mean, he was the cash cow when I was fighting. He was the guy, and he fought a lot of the best fighters in the world at that point. So I do look at it that way.
You just brought him up. I wasn't even going to ask about
Okay.
Overall, what's your impressions of De La Hoya through the years to what he is today with his clapbacks and his whatever he wears on social media? What do you think of him?
Well, Oscar's he's been around for so long. I respect what he's accomplished. He was the golden boy, and now he's the promoter, Oscar De La Hoya. He's a different kind of guy. He's a character. He's different. He does a lot of crazy stuff, like his clap thing. And the way he dresses. In my opinion, I don't think he has to do that. He's Oscar De La Hoya. He's the promoter, but that's his way of doing things.
I think he should pay attention to how Smitty dresses. That's what he should do. As I flip to Lee Groves.
Hey, Raul, welcome back to the show.
Great to be on, man. Great to see you, and yeah, I'm here.
All right. Well, let's shift the focus to last weekend. What do you remember about working last week's ESPN Plus show with Smitty and Christina and Paulie? It really seemed to me watching it that not only were you all calling the fights, but you were also having fun. Were you having fun?
Absolutely, man. I think it was a great team. I used to work with Christina back earlier back in the Top Rank days. We used to do a lot of fights with the Colonel, with the late Colonel
Bob Sheridan.
Bob Sheridan, yeah. And I was around Paulie a lot whenever I was with Showtime, Showbox, and I did the big fights in Spanish. So, and Smitty, he's a great guy. So I had a lot of fun. You had a team that was we're very boxing knowledgeable, man. We're professionals, and it was a fun night. I think we had a lot of fun covering the fights, and it was a great experience.
Yeah. Who were the fighters that caught your attention and why? Obviously, Vito was one.
Vito, I'll tell you what, Vito has come a long way. I've known Vito since he was a little boy, with my older boys, Raul Jr. and Arturo, who also went professional. I know him and his dad since back in the amateur days, the national tournaments. He was a little bitty boy, man. And all of a sudden he just got big and grew. Now he's a middleweight. I was very impressed with his performance. I like the way he listened to his corner, Ronnie Shields. He wasn't loaded up with his shots. I love his fluidity, the way he was letting his combinations go, using his jab, working the body. What about the body? Against Gardzielik? We joked about Gardzielik because it was so hard to pronounce his name, but
Mhm.
I'm getting it right now. Gardzielik.
Yeah, I
Finally, I'm
told
getting
you.
it right.
We always get the stuff right a few days later. Same with me. Gardzielik. I'll never say it incorrectly again.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but yeah, Vito was very impressive, man. His conditioning. Not only that, he dropped Gardzielik. Gardzielik had never been dropped, so he showed us some power. He was very consistent throughout the fight. I was really impressed. The other fight that I was impressed by, I was impressed by Jahai.
Mhm.
What was his last name? Jahai
Tucker
Tucker.
and Simpson.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Simpson. Yeah, Jahai. Yeah, Simpson is was the bigger dude. He had fought as high as 180 something, but he was more like a 168 pounder. He went down for that fight, and I thought he was going to be stronger, more powerful. But Jahai really impressed me with his combination punch, and every time, what's his name, Tucker, but
Mhm.
Jahai, not Simpson. Every time Simpson connected with two or three good shots, Jahai Tucker came back with
right
four,
back.
five, six, seven punch combinations from different angles. His speed, his combination punching from different angles, his conditioning. Yeah, he really impressed me. Really the main event and the co-main event fighters impressed me. They did really good. Another guy that we had on there, Brandon Lee. He had been
Mhm.
off for a whole year. I've had him on Showbox. He grew up on Showtime. I remember when he was a hot prospect coming up. I think he was a little bit flat. He was a little bit the year that he'd been off kind of maybe take a toll. But I'm glad he's back. He needed those rounds to work, and I look forward to seeing him again in the future.
For many years, you did commentary for Showtime, and in December 2023, Showtime ended its association with boxing. After next month's show, topped by Xander Zayas' world title shot, ESPN will be doing the same, meaning that boxing, at least in the United States, is going to leave terrestrial television and become an all-streaming sport. Do you see this as a bad thing, or do you see this as an inevitable transition?
I think, yeah, I mean, boxing's not going to disappear. It's not going to go nowhere. I think, everybody is going to find the right platform. I don't think I can't say it's a bad thing because boxing's going to continue. I mean, as you see right now, it's always a different phase. I remember back in my days when I was fighting. When it was HBO and or TVKO on pay per view, and then of course what about main events, the Duvas when they used to promote,
Mhm.
and then of course HBO, Showtime with PBC, Al Heyman. And then you got the guys from the other side of the world, Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, and then now you have Turkey Alakish, and Dana White coming into the boxing. Turkey's taking over because he's paying his fighters a lot of money. That he's making the fights that people want to see
Mhm.
because he's paying the fighters the money that they want. I think it's just a different phase in the boxing world. It's always changing, and it's gonna continue. It's gonna continue. Boxing ain't going nowhere. I believe that Top Rank will find sooner or later will find another platform where they could televise their fights. I mean, look at Jake Paul and those guys. Have they found their platform, their promotional company, MVP. Of course, the Zone. The Zone is very
Mhm.
busy too, showing all kinds of boxing, working with different promoters, different platforms. I mean, it's all over. So I think there's a lot of boxing out there. Boxing ain't going nowhere, guys.
You brought up Turkey Al Sheikh, and one of
Yeah.
the big news items in recent weeks has been his declaration that he's not going to tolerate any more what he calls Tom and Jerry fights, in
Right.
which one fighter spends the whole fight chasing the other one.
Yeah.
And to fix that problem, he's going to have fights in smaller rings, 18 by 18, and he will offer performance bonuses for knockouts. You were an aggressive, crowd-pleasing fighter. That's not going to be a problem for you. But
Actually, yeah.
but for others, like say Shakur Stevenson, who's going to fight William Zepeda soon, he may be negatively affected by this. Do you think that Turkey is doing a good thing or a bad thing by these dictates?
I mean, if you ask me, like, come on. I mean, I was an action fighter. I came to fight, headbutts, elbows. For me, I mean, I could fight in a phone booth. So for me, I think it's a great idea. People want to see action fights, and those guys that are more boxers that move around, they got to find a way to just keep turning the fighter, like keep the fight in the center of the ring, or keep turning the fighter off the ropes. When you're on the ropes, take a step back, keep turning. I mean, but yeah, I'm not against that. I think it would create more action fights. Some of those guys will be forced to fight more. There won't be so much holding. I'm not a fan of 1, 2, 3, then hold. To
Mhm.
stop your momentum. That I mean, there's fighters that fight that way, but if you're a fighter, it doesn't matter what kind of ring it is. If it's a big ring or a small ring, and if you're a badass, you're gonna have to figure it out.
Indeed. Um, Later tonight, Jake Paul is going to be fighting Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. on DAZN pay-per-view.
Yeah.
What do you make of the Jake Paul phenomenon in general, and what do you think of the Chavez fight in particular?
Well, I mean, Jake Paul, he's a social media star, right? I mean, he's got a following, big following. But I respect him. You know why? Because, and I've done a couple of his fights in the past, because I feel like he respects the sport of boxing. He puts in the time. He puts in the work. He hires the right sparring partners. He's a student of the game. He's got the right trainers. Like, he really wants to learn boxing, and he's finding Chavez Jr. Yes, he's been off for about a year. His
Mhm.
last fight against Uriah Hall, what was a 6 round fight, mixed martial artist guy. And then before that, I believe he hadn't fought like in 2.5 years. He went
Mhm.
through the drug and alcohol abuse and all that. He might not be the same. He's 39 years of age. He's coming back. I think it's a good fight for Jake Paul to show where he's at in the boxing world, to
Mhm.
see if he really deserves those bigger fights with I call like real fighters.
Mhm.
And for Canelo, I mean for Canelo, for Chavez, it it's a payday for him. I'm sure he's gonna get paid well. And if he was to win, well, then there could be a rematch. But if he was to lose, then I mean, let's be honest, he's got to get out of boxing. He's got to retire
He may
before he
have
gets
more
hurt.
impact as a promoter than he will as a fighter, considering Amanda Serrano and all the people that he's promoting.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, that too. But I don't know. What I'm saying is Chavez Jr., if he loses, he needs to get out of boxing and retire.
Yeah.
And Jake
Yeah.
Paul, like if he beats uh Chavez, then his boxing will continue as a
Yeah, well,
fighter and as a
let's
promoter.
hope. Let's hope though, if he does win, and I think Paul will win.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think it's time for him to actually fight real fighters. In the same weight, same part of their career, same part of their career that he's at. Enough of the frickin' charades of the Tysons and the thises and the that's. Chatting with Raul Marquez. A few more minutes. Keep going, Lee. I know you have a few more questions.
Yeah, July is going to see a number of marquee fights. And since you're an analyst, I'd like for you to offer some quick thoughts on the following matches. On July 11th on Netflix, we're going to have a card topped by Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. They're fighting for the third time.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts of that particular match?
I think that I mean when those girls fights, when they have those girl fights, man, you sit back and enjoy it, man, because it's bombs away there. They throw down. They really throw down. I feel like Serrano, is gonna take it this time.
Hmm.
They're I know there have been very close fights. they're who is it 1-1 or 2-1? 2-0.
It's 2-0 for Katie
2-0. Yeah,
Taylor. Both
2-0,
were
but
controversial.
questionable. Yeah, controversial. But I think it's this time. Serrano is gonna make the right adjustments, which is not much because I think one of those fights, I think she really won. But like I
The
said, there
second
was
one.
the second one. There was controversy there, but
Yeah.
I think she's gonna take it this time. I think she really wants it. I think she's the better fighter, stronger, more power, and she's gonna take over.
The next day, and we made sort of reference to this, Shakur Stevenson is going to fight William Zepeda July 12th
Man,
on DAZN. What do you think
yeah.
of that one?
I'm excited about that fight. We're friends with Shakur because my son spars him over here at Prince Gym here in Houston. I think very high of Shakur. He's got a high boxing IQ. He's a really smart fighter. Uh, I think it's going to be an interesting fight. I think Shakur is going to be tested by Cepeda. Cepeda's a guy that we know how he fights. He's relentless, and he's in really good shape. And he keeps that pressure. Actually, he gets better as the fight goes on. At
You
the
think
beginning,
he'll bring out the best in Shakur?
I think he's gonna bring out the best. And sometimes it takes a fighter like that, to bring out the best. Like where Shakur really gets up for it. Like he really wants it. I think Shakur will take over by just his ring intelligence. He's very smart. He's a student of the game. He's the way he picks you apart with the jab and he turns you, stays away from the ropes and the corners. I think he'll fight. I think he's gonna fight with Cepeda at times, and dominate him in the second half of the fight. I really think it's gonna be a Shakur night. It's gonna be a great night for Shakur.
Do you have any concerns about one, the 18 by 18 ring, and two, Shakur's had problems with his hands?
No, I don't have any concern about that. I think he's gonna make the right adjustments. I know he's has the right sparring partners that are gonna be coming at him and putting a lot of pressure. I just believe that Shakur is gonna rise that day. Like, there's been other fights that we seen that maybe he wasn't that exciting. It was a boring fight because the guy didn't test him. Those guys didn't test him. Cepeda is a test for him, and he really knows it. Some people expect for Shakur to lose, and those are the kind of fights as a fighter that you rise to the occasion, and you're gonna see the best of Shakur Stevenson that night.
Next up, Mario Barrios and Manny Pacquiao, July 19th on Amazon Prime. The fight in particular, what do you think of the fight in particular and of Manny coming back at age 46?
I think it's crazy. I mean, I don't know why Manny's coming back. I mean, he's a legend. He did a lot for boxing. I don't know if he needs the money, whatever the reason is, but he's 46 years of age. I mean, he just got inducted to the Boxing Hall of Fame the other
Hmm.
day when we were there when we did the show on the Zone, with Dimitri Salita. Um, I don't think he should be fighting. Honestly, I just don't think Manny should be fighting. It's crazy how he could be off for so many years and then just come back and fight for the world title because obviously he's got a big name, but he's in there with a young cat. I mean, Mario Barrios from San Antonio, from Texas. He's a good fighter.
Hmm.
At this point, I mean, because of the age difference and Manny has been off for a while, and let's be honest, he hasn't looked his best in the last couple of fights. I think the youth, and just the the power and just being younger. Mario Barrios, I think he's gonna beat Manny. I think he'll beat him.
Unfortunately, I think he stops him. I know you got two more fights
I
to ask
do.
him about, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, on July 19th, same day, Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois are going to have their rematch. What are your thoughts on that?
Man, Dubois has, he's improved. He's gotten better, right?
Hmm.
But I think Usyk is the guy. I think he's the best at the heavyweight division. When he beat Tyson Fury, like he knows how to, like, he's not a big heavyweight, like the other guys, like
Hmm.
Tyson Fury. I don't think he's that big, but he's very technical. He's very smart. The way he moves around the ring, the way he connects with his shots. He's very accurate, and they come with power. He's a smart fighter. He's a very smart fighter. The jab, he knows how to control the distance, how to attack when it's safe to attack, how to move in circles and turn. I got Usyk. I think Usyk wins. I think he's the best heavyweight out there, and I'm very impressed by him.
And finally, and this is a fight that's going to come in September, so there's quite a ways before we see it. But Canelo Alvarez and Bud Crawford, September 13th on Netflix.
Yeah, people have been asking me about that, and I've been doing interviews. And of course, I'm Mexican. People think I'm gonna go for Canelo because I'm Mexican, But I don't. Canelo he's not the same guy. Like the way when I saw him with Skull, he's not the same fighter. People say, well, Skull was running. I mean, what do you expect? He's Cuban, the Cuban school of boxing. But when have you seen a Cuban stand there and trade? Their thing is hit and not get hit. That's the way he's gonna fight. Why would Skull stand there with Canelo and trade punches? If Canelo is the Canelo that he is, Canelo, you got to cut off the ring, make that ring smaller. Make it into a phone booth, run him out of the ring. But Canelo wasn't doing that. He was following him around. He wasn't cutting the corners and pinning him on the corners and the ropes. So I believe that Crawford and Canelo, if you look back at when they debuted, they were around 138, 139, the first professional fight. They fought at the same weight class, right? And if you see, they're the same size. I know Canelo has been at 168 longer and fought bigger guys, but when they came up, they were the same weight class.
Canelo was 15.
Right. Canelo was 15 still. Okay, it's okay, but are you telling me you're picking Canelo? but I think, you know what?
No, I'm just playing devil advocate here.
Oh, okay. I know,
but he is picking Canelo because they both have look at his hair. Look at his hair. Well, who else would he be picking?
Yeah, that makes sense. Crawford has long arms, guys.
Yeah.
So Canelo has to get under those long arms to get in there. And it's hard. Like, this is funny, but let me just say this story, Smitty. When I fought Arthur Abraham, short, stocky guy, but his arms were long, like almost down to his knees. Of course, I'm trying to get in, but he's hitting me from outside. I'm like, why is he hitting me? I'm like, because his arms are so long. So I think that Crawford is going to dictate the pace of the fight. He's going to, he's a very smart fighter. He knows how to turn fighters, to the right, to the left. I think he'll stand in front of Canelo when it's right. He'll trade with him, and he'll keep turning him. I don't think he's going to run. He's going to turn him around. He's going to keep turning to the right, to the left, explosive combinations, the jab, straight down the middle. Second half of the fight, I think he's going to really take over and tattoo, like round 8, 9, just tattoo Canelo, because Canelo, he tires out always like in the second to the almost towards the end, 8, 9, 10.
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe, really, I think Crawford is going to win this fight. I think Crawford is going to pull off the big upset with people that think that Canelo's going to win. It's a big event. I mean, it's the biggest fight in boxing. I'm excited about it. Can't wait. But I believe Crawford. I believe Crawford's going to win, guys.
Yeah, you explained it well. How disappointed were you that my shoes never made it into the actual broadcast?
I was very disappointed, but I still think you saw my shoes.
Yes.
I still think my shoes are a little bit more.
We got to have a shoe off.
Yeah,
I told you to take the picture of my shoe and your shoe together and see what people think. I mean, I do like your style. How you have so many different types of boots, but my shoes were nice too.
Yeah, you looked good. You weren't Smitty, but you looked good. Listen, I'm shutting the hell up. He picked up the tab. He left a $20 tip. I wish people though could hear the conversations we had. That would make for a scintillating broadcast, but it really was a blast being with you, working with you. What do you got coming up? I know you're busy doing a lot of stuff with your son and with Jim. What do you got coming up? What should we look out for?
I mean, I got a new gym here in Kingwood coming up that I'm working on, boxing fitness, because that's where you make money. You don't make no money in boxing. So here, here where I live in Kingwood, in about a week, we got the state championships for Liam, my little boy coach's pitch. We got that. Me and Giovanni were working today. He's hopefully my son who's 13-0 with 6 knockouts. Hopefully we'll get a fight here in August or September. What else do I have going? Hey, by the way, look, I got that podcast with Lupe Contreras. You got to like and subscribe. Raul Marquez's Punchy with Lupe Contreras. So, we've already started this about a month ago.
What does it air on? How do we find it?
It's on YouTube. It's on YouTube. Okay. Yeah, cool. It's on YouTube and all those other. Well, Lupe knows more about it. I always forget YouTube. What is it? Spotify? Yeah, Spotify. Yeah. But you got to like and subscribe on YouTube, guys. Raul Marquez is Punchy with Lupe Contreras. We talk about boxing, but we really don't break down the fights like everybody else does. They want to get right and, like break it down, really get into it. We talk about it, and then Lupe comes up with some humor that you guys would really like, to hear. It's fun.
He is a funny dude and a great ring announcer to.
Yes, he is,
to go along with it. Well, listen, thanks for taking some time out. It indeed was a pleasure to work with you, and
always.
I hope we do it again, and we'll get you on again before Bud and the redhead go at it. We'll get you on again before then if we can.
Sounds good, man. Always great to be on with you guys, and I really appreciate it, and thank you very much.
El Diamante, Raul Marquez. We'll take a break. We'll be back.
I got 2 options. Option 1, I can accept defeat. Option 2, I can get up. I can get tougher. I can get faster. I can get stronger. And then I go get mine. I made my choice. Have you made yours?
Back in this corner of the podcast, $162. Good stuff there with El Diamante Raul Marquez. And it's going to be good stuff pretty soon for me when because I'm getting ready to go sit in the chair again with Dr. Nam.
Fun.
That's right. Dental implant expert. He's got some work to do on my left side. In fact, 3 implants to finish up. And mine was pretty complicated because they had to build up bone and let the bone set. And now we go in there and after it's been about, I think, 7 or 8 or 9 months, because Dr. Fon does things the right way. And when really implants is a serious thing, but it can be a great thing, especially as you get on in life and stuff, and you don't want to have dentures or whatever. Implants are the way to go, and Dr. Nam Fon is the way to go. He is located in Las Vegas, in New York, in New Jersey. I just always give the one number, 702-637-9168, 702-637-9168. The other thing that I always push is the fact that these things can get pricey. Not everybody has dental insurance. You should have it, but not everybody does. And it can be expensive, implants and that type of work. And he is really great about putting together flexible financial options for you. Dr. Nam Fon. All right, we're in our final segment. What are we doing?
Well, we're going to do some previews, and the main card that we're going to speak about is going to be tonight's MVP show that will have a mixture of big time boxing and big top boxing. So let's first talk about the few of the notable big time fights. First, there's a lightweight crossroads fight between Floyd Schofield and former IBF 130-pound champion Tevin Farmer. On paper, one would think that Schofield would be the heavy favorite because he's undefeated. He's 18-0, right. And Farmer's 12 years older at 34, and he's on a 3-fight losing streak. But to me, it's pretty intriguing because Farmer lost, those three losses were quality losses. He lost a unanimous decision to Raymond Murataya, who is now the IBF lightweight champion. Then he lost back-to-back fights to William Zepeda, first by split decision and then by a majority decision. And he floored Zepeda in round 4 of their first fight. For these reasons, I see this as a step-up fight for Schofield. I think it's going to be very competitive. I am picking Schofield to win, but it's not going to be as easy as the paper indicates. Another fight will be the one between WBA and WBO cruiserweight champion Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez, a guest on our show not too many months ago, and former two-time cruiserweight titleist Uniel Dorticos. And this is interesting because Zurdo has had to completely change his style to successfully compete at cruiserweight.
Yeah.
And Dorticos, even though he's 39 years old and he's fought only once in the last, I think, 2.5 years, he's got size, he's got strength, and he's got legitimate power at the weight. 25 of his 27 wins are by knockout. What does he have left? And what happens if he hits Zurdo clean? I do think that Ramirez will box his way to a points victory. And if he wins, he's got a lot of options. David Benavidez has talked about moving up to cruiserweight. There are the other champs and Jai Opetaia and Badu Jack. And if Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. beats Jake Paul, he's in the mix. By the way, Zurdo is quoted as saying he'd bet his house that Chavez is going to beat Jake Paul. But if Jake wins, Zurdo said he'd give him his respect and maybe take a fight with Jake Paul himself and all that money that it will mean for him. The last fight that I'm going to preview is Holly Holm. She's going to be returning to boxing after more than 12 years away. She spent most of those years in MMA. And she will be fighting an undefeated opponent in Yolanda Vega, who at 30 is 13 years younger. And she's also rated 10th by the IBF. So if Holly Holm wins, she could qualify for a world title shot. And like Manny Pacquiao, she will be returning to the ring as an International Boxing Hall of Fame inductee, as she was part of the class of 2022. I have no idea who's going to win this fight. I haven't seen Holly fight in the ring for 12 years, and I haven't seen any footage of Vega. But I have a pretty good idea of what you think about Holmes' return, right?
Well, what I think about all of it, I think you should count your sweet blessings that you have your faculties. Hopefully you have some money. You're a Hall of Famer, and I don't like it at all for any of them, and I'm 100% against it. Yeah, so I wish she wasn't fighting.
And now, as for the big top fight, Jake Paul is going to be returning to the ring for the first time since his debacle against 58-year-old Mike Tyson. And the opponent will be 39-year-old former middleweight titleist Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. To me, Jake Paul is following the same formula as Floyd Mayweather did during the second half of his career. He's picking opponents with big names, but who also have at least one, if not more, major weaknesses that Jake can exploit. I see a big viewing audience, I see a lively atmosphere, and I also see a disappointing final result, either Paul on points or Chavez quitting on his stool. What say you?
I see a load of crap. The whole thing, it just reeks of BS, and we've seen it over and over and over and over again. I won't get political, but it's almost like one of those things. If you keep saying something over and over and over again, people start to even believe it. And with this, it's people have started to accept this and make excuses for it. If Jake Paul wants to be a fighter, he has enough money to orchestrate himself to have a legitimate career, but he doesn't. He wants to keep fighting old men, tired men, former UFC guys. Now a guy who has been labeled a quitter in Chavez, who was beaten by Anderson Silva?
Same guy Jake Paul
Paul beat. what other than helping other people get on these cards, what possible good does this do for an already fledgling sport in America? What does it do? It does absolutely nothing. So, having said that, just like I said that Jake Paul would defeat Mike Tyson, Jake Paul will probably stop Chavez, or more likely, Chavez will stop himself and quit. And I hope, boy, do I hope I'm wrong. But if Jake Paul, who we've seen improve, if he wins this and he's convincing, okay, then why not fight a guy that's 12-3 or 10-5, a real fighter, somebody that's basically the same age as him, maybe didn't have a great amateur career, but another professional. Show us what you really got against somebody else that is a real prize fighter. And those that would be saying, what is Smitty talking about? Chavez is he hasn't been a real prize fighter for a long, long time. Maybe the last time he really was in that final round against Sergio Martinez, when he almost pulled off the upset there. And he had a little bit of talent, not a lot of talent, but he made the most of it for a while. So I guess thinking about his dad, what does his dad even think? I don't know if his dad's been any part of the buildup, but I pray at some point this ends. And I'm even tired of doing this with you, and I know you're tired of me talking about it. I try not to. This show is supposed to be about real boxing, and I don't think this is. In fact, I know it isn't. So, having said that, we'll see what will happen. But the good news is, and you chronicled this with Raul, there's a lot of really good stuff, real fights coming up. There's some on this card, but there's also some really good stuff and really excellent prize fighters that we have to look forward to, culminating with Bud and Canelo, two guys that I have done many interviews with, especially Canelo. I've done a lot more probably interviews with Canelo even than I've done with Crawford, who's been my favorite fighter since since like 2012 or something, like 13 or something like that. So, but anyway, hopefully, we don't have to talk about these sideshows and charades or big top, as you have put it, because there's so much other stuff that we can focus on, right?
Very much so. And winding up the show, one of the big debates that's been going on around social media in the last few days is the matter of Terence Crawford's resume. And that's because Canelo said, well, Bud hasn't fought anyone elite. You have been one of Bud's biggest supporters. And a few days ago, you sent me a tweet that you put up in 2013 that said, hey, this Terence Crawford is a guy that we should really keep an eye on.
We'll put that up right here. Yeah, take a look at that. Yeah, I know that just popped up. Yeah, I have been, but continue.
So you've been one of his biggest supporters. What do you say about Canelo's charge? Has Bud fought anybody elite? Does his record measure up?
His record doesn't measure up, but that's because the opponents were there for Canelo. Bigger name guys, like Cotto and Golovkin and those type of guys, and they weren't there in the divisions that really Crawford's been fighting at. I mean, he's the only guy I think to stop Sean Porter, right? Who who held the title, and Yuriorkis Gamboa, I know, is a smallish guy, but he was elite in his day. Maybe not when he had that fight, but I think Crawford did what he needed to do. And not only did he fight who was in front of him, he plastered most everybody. What was that streak he had going about? Wasn't it about 8 or 9 or 10 stoppages?
I think it was like 10 or 11 in a row, and most of them were at welterweight.
And he was going up in weight. And then, of course, with Madrimov, he didn't look so good in his last one. And but I think he's done what he was supposed to do, and he did it better than anybody in boxing. His skill set is the best. we'll see how that, translates in September against the redhead.
Yeah, and I was bringing up Crawford's information, his statistical profile, and he has fought 11 guys who have held world titles during any point of their careers. Ricky Burns, he outpointed him. Yuriorkis Gamboa, he knocked him out in the ninth round. Victor Postol was a respected guy at 140, presented a stylistic puzzle. Bud dominated and won a 12-round decision. Julius Ndongo, he was the guy that Crawford beat to become undisputed at 140 pounds. He knocked him out in the second round. Raymond Beltran, Jeff Horn, Amir Khan, Kell Brook, Sean Porter, Errol Spence, and Madrimov.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty good resume, and he's undefeated. And he has come a very long way since getting that break a whole bunch of years ago. He was a late sub, and he fought Bradis Prescott on HBO. He was perceived as an underdog in that fight, and he made a fantastic first impression, and the rest is history.
Yeah, and again, he wins this fight if he fights smart, and no matter what Canelo does, Bud wins if he stays smart. But that's a big but, because he is at his core. He is a fighter. He does not fight like Floyd Mayweather. That's not how he fights. He's got some of those skills. In fact, me, I said that he would have beaten Floyd because of the way he can do it. But that, again, that's why I don't think, and we've got so much time to talk about it, I don't think it's going to be the firefight that Turk Al-Sheikh hopes it'll be. It will not be that kind of fight. Sorry, boxing fans. Hearns and Hagler, no. There might be moments, but you're not going to see a pure sixer with these two all-time greats. You're not going to see it.
It's going to be more like an edge of your seat suspense kind of fight.
Yeah.
Is Bud going to, how is Bud going to take Canelo's power? Will Crawford's power register on Canelo? If you take the physical aspects out of it and just go skill for skill, Terrence Crawford is going to give himself a heck of a chance to win.
Bobby Fischer, and Canelo's going to be Boris Spassky, and how that ended.
Yeah, if it becomes a chess match.
I don't know how many times they played each other, those two. I'm not sure.
Not too many,
and
but
nobody in the audience knows what I'm talking about, do they?
Right. Well, maybe if you want to bring it to a more modern thing, it would be like Gary Kasparov and Magnus Carlsen. Those are two of the greatest chess players.
And I'm sure he's going to put pictures up of those guys, so at least I didn't go completely over the heads of everybody involved. We want to thank Raul Marquez, El Diamante, for joining us. It was great working with him and Paulie Malignaggi and Christina Poncher last week. Always great working with my podcast partner. I don't like my broadcast. I'll call it not podcast, but broadcast partner. By the way, Dawn, Dazzling Dawn, gave me. She was texting me during the broadcast the other night, and she said two shoe references were too many. She said I can only do one shoe reference in the future, but she did say my hair looked great, and it does look pretty good. And on that note, we will. What do we have? Do we know what we have next week yet? Or I'm not sure.
We have no idea yet.
We don't. Well, we'll figure it out. So long, everybody.